The After Effects interface is broken up into a number of panels. On the left hand side you have the project panel. The project panel is where the assets, or as After Effects refers to them, footage that are used in an After Effects project. Here I have a JPEG that's stored in the project tab. Now, in order for me to be able to use this JPEG in an animation, I have to create what's called a composition. A composition is much like a sequence in Final Cut Pro. Once you have a composition, then you have a timeline that you can animate things on. To create a composition, you can click the Create Composition button down here at the bottom, and it will ask you what type of presets you want to have for this. So if you want it to be a DV or a HDV or a HD animation or output video, then you would set that here. You would also give it a name, and you also assign a duration and a frame rate to it as well. So this is the settings that your video will have when you output your final work from After Effects. I'm going to cancel that. What I can do here, because I have a JPEG and I want my composition to be the exact size of my JPEG, I'm going to go about it a different way. I'm going to click and drag that down onto the composition window, and it will create a composition with the name of my JPEG. Now what I can see down here is that I have a composition. It has a time code up here that allows me to move along this composition's timeline, or I can just pick the playhead here and move it. Now because it's a JPEG, you won't see much happening. So the project panel stores the media, and if I want to tidy up the media, I can use folders and move my items in and out of folders there just to keep them tidy. Now down here on my timeline, which is actually the time-based way of viewing the inside of my composition, I can see that my JPEG is now sitting here. Okay, so the timeline is much like you would expect it to be. You have a playhead, you have the object, and you can move along the timeline. And when we have some animations going on here, we'll see the changes in animation up here. So this is the composition window. This is where you view everything that you have down here in your composition's timeline. The composition window is where you will do your animation. So I could click this and move it around, and this is what would be output when I export my final video. Also up here you have the layer view, or the layer window. So if you have a layer that you want to look at on its own, you double click on the layer down here in the timeline, and it opens up that layer there. Now what you will find when you're getting used to After Effects is that you will not be aware of which of these windows is open, and you may be wondering why you can't see your animation. That's possibly because you have the layer window open instead of the composition window. On the right hand side you have a number of additional tabs. Now we're looking at these particular tabs or panels because we're in the standard workspace. You will spend most of your time in the standard workspace, and this is what you will be able to see. So we have the info, which gives us information on an object's position and an object's size, etc., and also on the actual object itself. We have an audio tab which allows us to meter the audio as we're playing audio on the timeline. We have the preview buttons here which allow us to play the timeline. And down here we have an effects and presets tab. You have a very large library of effects and filters, etc. here available to you, which you can access by putting in search terms or by going through the various folders and subfolders. So that's the basic. Before we finish up, at the top you have the toolbar. Now the toolbar has a number of very familiar tools that you'll be used to seeing from other applications, such as the selection tool, the hand tool. So the selection tool, set by default, allows you to pick up and move objects, whereas the hand tool allows you to move around the screen. Now the type tool will actually generate type for you, and when you have type generated on your canvas, you'll see that a type layer appears on your timeline. So this is a different way of generating content, which we'll look at in more detail directly in After Effects. So that's a general tour of the interface.